Hello everybody, it's Ophelia Dragon here. I've been meaning to do this for a while. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Modern Horizons and its impact on Commander. Mainly just going to go over the new cards. Cards that are reprints. Not much point in talking about them unless they specifically are making a card that people want and need in the format more available if it's hard to find. And we're also going to be primarily looking at Magic Online as opposed to paper, which, due to things like card availability, as well as the functionality of certain combos and how hard they are to pull off, rather than in paper where you can shortcut things, makes certain things more common online than they are in paper, and vice versa. So we're going to be talking from that perspective. I'm also recording this as usual with my stream on Twitch. So anybody who goes and checks my Twitch archives for at least a little while will be able to watch this video there. Plus, there might be a few people on my stream watching this as I'm recording it. Morophon. I like Morophon. Morophon answers a huge question and fills a blank in the format that has been needed for a while. There are a lot of tribes that people just simply can't play because there's not really a commander for them, or there is a commander for them, but the commander is in colors that don't really give you a lot of options, or just isn't very good. Morophon answers that question, and then some. So you can make a tribe for any commander you want. Now, or have a commander for any tribe you want, and it does so in a really, really good way. It's actually effective. It's too expensive to really have impact on competitive outside of some sort of combo deck. This might see play, for instance, in Food Chain as a new Food Chain commander. And if that's the case, that's a good thing. Nice to have options there. But the thing that's really standing out to me is its ability to be a sliver, which means we got the two best sliver commanders in this set. And what I would do is I would put this one into my command zone, and then put the first sliver, which is later in this list, I would put that in the 99, because it would allow you then to cascade into all the other sliver commanders for free, and possibly go off that way, especially if they're with all sorts of tutors that allow you to like stack the top of your deck. I think that might be a thing. I don't know how competitive it'll be, but it'll definitely be some people trying that out. The next card on here is Answered Prayers. This card's not that great. It's been a while since we've had this type of effect where it's an enchantment which situationally becomes a creature. I like this card, and I can see people running it in Angel decks, or some Enchantment Matters decks, or even token decks. The 3 mana for a 3/3 flyer that gains you a little bit of life and has some evasion is at best average. And it also has the problem where anybody running a Forbidden Orchard can shut you down. Literally, like any board wipe, somebody just gives you a token with a Forbidden Orchard and this dies. It's not bad. I just think it's not great. Astral Drift, I'm really happy to see. Having a second Astral Slide effect in Commander, I think, will actually make the deck relevant. I've had some fun Astral Slide decks. They tend to be more on the casual end. It's not a competitive option, but it's a lot of fun. A deck I would probably run this in. I used to run my last slide deck. It was I've run it with Karametra. I've run 5-color slide, so you can get access to stuff like Lightning Rift. But I'd like to see some people build with this. The fact you can cycle it itself to trigger it is actually really important, especially if you have something Auramancer type effects that you can then use to get it back. This is just a really solid card. Enduring Sliver. I like the idea of Outlast on the Sliver, but this isn't very good. There's no benefit to Outlast. If you look at other Outlast creatures, they give a bonus to all creatures with counters on them generally. And this literally just gives Slivers Outlast. And it's just not very good. The templating on this is weird too. It has Outlast 2 for itself, but it says other Slivers you control have Outlast 2. Why does it need to be templated like that? Why can't it just say Slivers you control? It's just too much word text for the exact same effect. This is neat. There's definitely some decks that are going to want Ephemerate. This is actually, I like this as a flicker effect. 1 mana flicker that rebounds is really good. This is gonna go see play in some casual decks. Anything that wants to flicker stuff. It's Face of Divinity. As long as another aura is attached to a enchanted creature, it has first strike and lifelink. This is gonna be really good in Modern. It's probably gonna show up in Boggles. In Commander, there's some Voltron builds I think would like this. What's her name? The one that returns equipment and auras that die at the end of turn. This would go right in there. Giving Slivers Exalted is just weird. As a format, with a strategy that wants to usually go wide in order to stack up the buffs, I don't know why you'd run Exalted. Really, the only real reason is if you're gonna like try and Voltron your commander and just stack all sorts of buffs on it, which doesn't seem to be where Slivers want to be, and especially not for 5 mana. Now we have the Thirst of the Force cycle. This card is just bad. It's just really bad. There's already so many cards that give your creatures +1/+1 that are just so much better than this, and the ability to use it as a combat trick by exiling a card is just strict card disadvantage. It's not worth the surprise factor at all. Some people may try it, but it's just not worth it. Generous Gift is shifting a card from green into white, and I think it's actually a good idea. I've been seeing it with Boros, with red and with white. They've been adding a lot of effects that those colors are missing recently, with in terms of card advantage, better spot removal options, and mana ramp. And this goes right in that. And I think it's actually really nice to have this in the format. It will see play. Giver of Runes surprises me. I get why it's a Cohort and not a human, because you don't want this just going into humans. Just straight up printing Mother Runes into Modern, I think, would be a mistake, just simply because humans is a deck, and you don't need to give them another human that's that strong. However, that said, if you ignore the creature typing, this is strictly better than Mother of Runes, and Mother of Runes is a really good card. And this will see play. It may replace the Mother of Runes in a lot of other decks, or even become a second Mother of Runes. This is a really good card. Imposter of the Sixth Pride is actually a nice card, because it's a pretty decent 3/1 2-drop that can go in any tribal deck, which some tribes may actually need. It Flavor-wise, looks like it should probably go in a cat deck, of course, but you can put it anywhere. You can go and stick it. You can make it an elephant or whatever other creature you want. But it is just nice to have like a decently statted, not amazing. Honestly, it doesn't really do anything. But if you're lacking for options, either due to the lack of creature availability for a given tribe, or you specifically just don't currently have access to certain cards, I could see this as a good filler in any sort of tribal deck. I wouldn't run it on its own. The only thing of note, as with any Changeling, is that they all are also ninjas. But having a white ninja doesn't really do anything. They're also constructs. There's stuff that affects constructs, etc. Irregular cohorts. This I actually like better than Posture of the Six Prides, because this you get two bodies for 4 instead of 1/3/1 body, or which is the equivalent of a 2/2, only slightly more fragile. This is the better card. If you're in a situation where you're going to run one of these, unless you specifically need a 2-drop, and you need a creature to fill in a tribal slot for you, I would go for the irregular cohorts. King of the Pride is really good. Cat tribal is already almost a casual thing. It just needs a few tools. Having this on a cat body is actually relevant. I think this will see some play. Knight of Old Benalia is bad. If you want to build a suspend deck, it's probably one of the better suspend creatures. I mean, there are strictly better suspend creatures in this, but there's also a lot that are just trash. So if you're like really going to lean in and want to build a suspend deck, then this will do it. If you're looking to build a human deck or a knight deck, this won't do it. This is bad. This is just a bad card. Lancer Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have first strike. There's tons of other slivers that do this. However, this one does so in a very easily to splash ways. 2 and a 1. I believe the other good first strike sliver though is only 1 mana. So there's that. But this only gives it to your slivers. Martyr Soul. We have a Spirit Soldier, 3/2 for 3 with Convoke. If you only use creature tap, if you only tap creatures to cast it, leave all your lands untapped, you get a 5/4. Actually, that's not bad. This is pretty decent. I can definitely see some homes for this. I don't think it's amazing, and it takes a bit of like building around. But if you're building some sort of Convoke deck, this is pretty good. It's also good in more casual decks, or not casual, more control. That's the word I was looking for. Ignore my brain fart. If this is good in a control deck, because you can you want to leave mana up to cast counter spells and removal anyways. This is what's the name of it? There's a card exactly like this, but it enchants a mountain. I run it in a couple decks, and I'm just blanking on its name. But this is the same card, only honestly, it has typing that matters more, and is strictly speaking thus a better card. If you have Snowlands, which is, there's no real reason not to be running some basic Snowlands if you have access to them. This card is good. 1 mana of removal. This is a really, really good card. Ranger Captain of Eos, I think, is in some situations a better Knight Captain. It gets less, but it's a 3/3 for 3, and you can also use it as kind of a silence effect, protecting you when you're comboing off, or if you have important spells you need to resolve, or if somebody else is trying to do something and you can interrupt it before they can play the next spell. Like if you can see somebody else starting to combo off, they have to get rid of this first. That's pretty good for a 3/3 on a 3-mana body. Plus it tutors. And this is, I think, in a lot of decks, this is going to be better than Knight Captain in Commander. Good enough that it'll start seeing play, whereas Knight Captain I don't see played very often. This is good enough, it might show up in some competitive decks. This is a recruiter. This might even be better than the white recruiter of the guard. Is that it? Um, there's less things it can get, but it has more impact on the actual board itself. And I will probably be slotting this in a lot of decks for that very purpose, in place of recruiter of the guard. Recruit the worthy. This is value at the very least. 4 mana to create a soldier. Some decks may want this. I don't think it's that great. It's good in decks with. It may be good with Convoke decks, but you can't. It's hard to really gauge most buyback spells until you see them played, because the ability to just have like infinite value is always good. It's whether or not the mana cost is worth it. But I think there's definitely points where this is a good card to include. I don't know if it's going to do anything. I don't see this doing anything in competitive really, but it'll have some slots in some casual decks. In comparison, this is at least as good as Whispers of the Muse in casual. I think Whispers of the Muse is better if in more tuned decks, and it doesn't even see play at that point. But I think if you're doing a casual, you're getting actual board state advantage, which a lot of decks that will actually matter more than drawing a random card. Compare this to that one. I think the other one makes Sapperlings. There's a card similar to this that makes Sapperlings. I think that sees some play. In fact, I think that one even sees play in a few competitive decks. So there might be a home for this. Pre-probation. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a coward creature with base and power and toughness of 0/1. I like this. This is another Darksteel mutation type card, which is relevant. It's a good way to shut down commanders. Darksteel mutation is better because the creature's indestructible, therefore it's really hard for them to get their commander back. They can't just Wrath of God it and get it back. They have to find another way. But this is really good too, and it will find home and become a removal card in a lot of decks. It might even become a second Darksteel mutation. Rock's Veteran. If you need a Rhino, if you're wearing Rhino Tribal, then this is okay. If not, I don't see a use for this. Segovian Angel, flying, vigilance, 1/1 for 1. This actually is nice if you're building angels, because it gives you a curve that you need. One of the problems with Angel Tribal is there's not much on the lower end, and most of the stuff on the lower end is, if it exists, is trash. This is really good for that. In other decks, I don't think they have much use for it, other than the fact specifically that it is an angel. But that is pretty decent statting on a 1-drop. Seer the Benevolent, one of the first revealed cards of the set. Nice to see her actually represented as a card. I feel really bad that the fact that she can't be a commander. I feel like she should have been printed in a commander set rather than in modern. Therefore, she could be a commander. This needs to be a commander. People will play her. She's good in an angel deck. Planeswalkers in general aren't very good in competitive EDH, but in a casual way, this is a decent card. Her -6 is awful. It doesn't really do anything. There's a reason why you rarely ever see worship in Commander. It's just not at a good effect. It's not impactful enough. You're costing you're effectively giving your opponents a minor time warp to do nothing. And then very situationally, this will be effective. but the first two abilities are decent and people will play this. It's not bad for a 4-mana Planeswalker. But I honestly think with this statage, this could have easily been a commander. And it would have been a fair commander Planeswalker. Settle Beyond Reality. Choose one or both. Exile target creature you don't control. Exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its control. If this was not 5 mana, this would be really good. 5 mana is clunky as heck. Also, it's a sorcery. This needs to either cost 4 or it needs to be an instant. This is trash. But it is nice to have a Swords to Plowshare effect and a Flicker effect on the same card. It's just really trash the way it goes about it. Sisse. I'm excited for Sisse. I might even put my my Weatherlight theme deck back together again. And one of the problems I had with that is choosing a commander for the deck. At first, that deck had Chromat as the commander simply because he was a 5-mana creature that happened to exist during the time of the lore of the Weatherlight storyline. And then I switched it to and that deck was doing really good. Then I switched it to Ramos because technically the legacy weapon was built up of all parts of Ramos anyways. And flavorfully it made sense. But the problem with that is I was actually made a huge target of me, and I had like literally nothing to do in the early game to back it up. So my win rate with that deck, just by switching to a better commander, went from about 75% to like 2. It was horrible. But this is going to become my new commander in the Weatherlight deck. It makes it a lot more obvious to people that I'm playing a casually themed storyline deck. That makes me happy. However, there is some talk about this possibly being the new food chain commander, in which case I could have the exact same problem I have with Ramos. But this is a really good card. I think I like this better than the old Captain Sisse. I think the old Captain Sisse is kind of busted. This one might be busted too, but in a different way and a little bit less obvious and linear in terms of what you want to do with it. And I think this is a really fun and good card. It's also really cool as a Voltron commander if you want to go that way and use her to tutor up legendary equipment and buff cards. You could, if you wanted to, use her to assemble Kaldor? Is that the word I'm looking for? Cauldra. You can use her to assemble Cauldra. Yeah, apologies on my brain farts. I have not filled myself with enough coffee yet this morning. Soul Strike technique. Chat creature. Chat creature gets +1/+1 and have vigilance. And when it dies, manifest. That's pretty good value. I would run this in a deck where auras matter. That's pretty darn good value. I think this will see some play in some decks. Splicer Skill. They fixed Splice into Arcane, which was a very narrow mechanic that would have been good if there were any number of decent Arcane cards. The ability to just for 4 mana attach a golem to any of your spells is actually really, really good. This will see some play. In fact, I would argue that this Splicer Skill is probably better than Recruit the Worthy. Some people will play this. It'll show up. Stirring Address. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 on the turn. Overload 6. See, this is a good card. 6 mana, all your creatures get +6, +2/+2 as instant speed is pretty decent. I mean, stuff like Overload does see some play, and this is actually, in many ways, just because it's an instant better. Plus, you could play it just as for a buff for one creature. I might even run this in Feather. This is a good card for Feather. specifically because it can give you a necessary buff as you need it and return to your hand, and then when you're ready to win the game, you can overload it. Worth noting that once you overload it, though, it's gone. Trustworthy Scout. Exile from the graveyard. Search your library for a card named Trust. This is useless in Commander. Like, the only situation that this is good is if you activate it and then pull from Eternity the Scout while it's still on the stack, and then use an effect to shuffle it into your deck. That's just a really, really clumsy way to get another trustworthy Scout into your hand. This is a bad card for Commander. I could see this seeing some kind of play, maybe in Modern, but the ability to tutor itself up when it dies is kind of okay. So I'm like, this is going to show up more in casual Modern. This is just completely useless for Commander. Unless you're building a Scout deck and literally can't find any Scouts. Why are you doing that? Valiant Changeling, 6 mana. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature type among creature types you control. This effect cannot reduce the amount of mana the spell costs by more than 5. Changeling Double Strike. So, in a Changeling deck, this is a 2 mana 3/3 with Double Strike in a Changeling deck. If you're playing Morifron, this is a 1 mana 3/3 with Double Strike. This is a pretty good card in a Changeling deck. Specifically in a Changeling deck. If you've managed to, without playing Changelings, get a wide variety of creature types in your deck, this is okay, but I think that deck would be kind of clumsy. But if you're building a Changeling deck, this is pretty good. Vesperlark, 3 mana for flying. Elemental, when it leaves the battlefield, return target creature. This is good. This will see play. There's a lot of decks that want this. It's in some situations a better but less abusable Revelark. I'm totally going to run this in a bunch of decks. This is a good card. Wall of 1,000 Cuts. This is just bad. No deck wants this. Not even decks that run walls. The only reason you're going to run this card is if you specifically want to make a deck of really bad cards. That's it. Wings of Abandon, 2 mana, exile target creature you don't control. Oh, yes. The Overload Path to Exile. This will see play. It's not an instant, so it's not as good as Path to Exile, but the fact it has Overload, the ability to overload, and then for 6 mana and wipe out all of your opponent's creatures and exile them, is really good. Plus, a lot of decks they're not gonna get much land out of it because a lot of decks do run very little basic land. There is the off chance that you're just gonna feed somebody into combo out. However, there's a lot of ways to prevent people from doing the searching anyways. You could be playing with even Mind Sensor, for instance, or any other opponent can't tutor effects. There's tons of opponent can't tutor effects that are all playable and good and already seeing play. So I'm definitely going to test this card in a couple decks to see how it does. This is a good card. Zephyr and Decoy. This is simply for limited. This is a draft card. That's the only reason you'd be playing this card. It's I do love the unicorn zebra. I really appreciate that. But this card is trash and really only good in draft, and it's there simply for limited. Archmage Charm. This card is amazing. Any deck that can run a triple blue wants this. This is really, really, really good. Honestly, the counter target spell is probably the weakest effect on here. But the ability to just to draw 2 cards at instant speed or situationally gain control. of a creature. There's a lot of 1-mana creatures that are worth stealing. This is really good. Bizarre Trade Mage is Bizarre of Baghdad stuck on a forget which Efreet that is. That the 2-mana 3/4 flyer used to. I forget what I'm forgetting the name of the Efreet that is, but that used to see play. It was a decent creature. The Bizarre of Baghdad ability triggered stacked on it though. This card's going to need some testing to see what it does. This is either really good or just awful, and it's one of those cards that's going to be hard to tell until you've tried it in a few decks. I might try it in Muldrotha. I don't know if I need it there though. Blizzard Strix. If you control another snow permanent, exile target permanent other than Blizzard Strix, return that card to the bell. 5-mana flicker effect is not good. It's a bad card. Chiller Pillar. 4-mana, 3/3. Monstrous. If you need a blue insect, there you go. Why do you need a blue insect? Don't bother. Cunning Evasion. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. This is so good for ninjas. This is amazing for ninjas. I don't know if I'm putting it in my ninja deck though, because I don't usually have the problem of my stuff being blocked. However, one thing that's really useful though is if you attack with a ninja and somebody blocks the ninja, you can return the ninja to your hand and then ninjutsu an unblocked creature. So I might test it. It's rarely come up that such a situation would be necessary in my Eureka deck. It's worth testing though. Echo of Eons. Each player shuffles their hand and the graveyard into the library, then draws 7 cards. Flashback 3. This is nuts. If you ignore the flashback part, this is bad. 6 mana for this effect with no added benefit is crap. But it's really easy to get this in your graveyard. Really easy. At which time it turns into Time Twister. And having an extra Time Twister is very relevant. This is going to see some play. This is a good card. Everdream. This is a better Whispers of the Muse. That's it. This will see some play. I don't know how competitive it is because Whispers of the Muse isn't competitive, but this is not a bad card. The ability to just splice it onto stuff, I think. Attack it 3 mana to attach a cantrip onto any of your spells is relevant. And if you get it too early for you to be able to have the extra mana to do that, then there's a way to look at this. Early in the game, you just cycle it. Late in the game, it effectively turns all your extra land draws that you get into card draw. Because if you're getting all that extra mana and you have nothing to do with it, now you do. You can start filtering it into card draw off of your other spells. This is an okay card. Kite. 2 mana for situational 3/2 flyer. This is okay. This will see play in Modern. I don't know what use it will be in Commander, really. I'm actually, just an aside, really excited to see Factor Fiction in Modern. Fairy Seer. This is going right into my ninja deck. This is actually kind of nuts for ninjas. I'm not sure what I'm going to replace with this, but this is really freaking good. The ability to set up the top of my deck, and it's a 1 mana flyer. This is bonkers. This will see play in Commander. At the very least, it'll go into Eureka decks or any other kind of ninja deck. This is going to go probably into my Wizard deck. And the fact it's also a fairy matters because I do run a fairy sub theme in my Eureka deck. This feeds Spell Stutter Sprite. Force of Negation, 10 out of 10. This card's good. However, it's not a good counter spell if you're using it to protect combos. If you're using this to protect combos, you might not run this. Think of this as not Pact of Negation. Pact of Negation is the type of card you use to protect your combos as a counter spell because you can play it on your turn while you're trying to go off. This card, you can't do that. It's the opposite. This is the type of card you use to stop other combos. So, if you're running Pact of Negation in your deck and it's not doing very well for you, replace it with Force of Negation if you're not a deck that's trying to combo off and needing the Pact to protect yourself. If you need the Pact to protect yourself, you don't want Force of Negation probably. There's not going to be a lot of decks that are running both. But this is a really, really good card. Iceberg Cancerix, Crab. Crab Tribal, yay! Oh, it's another Hedron. This will see some play. Any deck that wants Hedron Crab wants Iceberg Cancerix. If you're playing Snowlands, that is. Because this is pretty decent. I don't know if I'm going to be running it in my own Finax deck. I don't even think I actually currently run the Crab in my deck. But if you're running a more quote-unquote fair mill deck, this is pretty good. Marital Agent Slumber. This is kind of gross. 2 mana, it's pretty easy to get 10 snow counters, or 10 snow permanents into play. It doesn't say 10 others, so it counts itself, and it gives you a scry effect. This will see some play. This is really good. Though that said, a 2020 creature with flying and indestructible is not as good in Commander as it is in other formats, simply because everybody has 40 life, and there's a lot more exile effects. But this is a solid card, and I think it will see play. And I think it honestly exists to make up for the fact that they had to ban Dark Depths in Modern, so that they can keep Marital Agent in Modern. I appreciate the flavor and also the reasoning behind why they played this. I think this is a decent card. I don't know if it's amazing, but it is decent. Mirrored and Besieged. As Mirrored and Besieged enters the battlefield, choose Miran or Phyrexian. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Mirror artifact creature token. For 3 mana, that's good. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 15 more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. That's disgusting. That's really easy. I might even stick that in my Muldrotha deck, because that deck does not have much trouble getting a bunch of artifacts in the grave. I have to do a count, and I'll do some test games and see on average how many artifacts wind up in my graveyard. But if I have enough games where it's 15, this will probably go in there. The only downside is the fact it only kills one person, but it will probably do it again on the next turn. Anything that only kills one person in Commander tends to be on the weaker side. However, usually you kill the person most likely to disrupt you. So this is potentially really good. I think in Modern this might become a sideboard card for affinity style decks when they face decks that have a lot of answers and removal, because they could simply slap this down and just win the game based off all that removal. Its first ability might even make it relevant just as a main deck option in Modern. Mist Syndicate, Naga, Ninjutsu. Naga Ninja, that's cool. Ninjutsu for 3. Whenever it deals damage, create a token that's a copy of Mist Syndicate Naga. You know what? It's not bad. 3 mana is a little bit much for what I want to play for a ninja. I might test this. I don't know how good it really is. On the other hand, though, this is not bad. This is not good, I mean. Moonblade, this is garbage. I could see an illusion deck would want this more than a ninja deck. This is worth testing, though. The ability to just make extra ninjas is relevant. Onira Phage. Squid Illusion. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it. There's so many cards that already do basically this better. But people still may want this, so I'm not going to totally discount this. But I don't think this is that great. Phantasmal Form. This would be bad if it didn't say draw a card. I think this is actually a very versatile card that some decks will want. You can use it to either get some extra damage in off of your own creatures, or punish other people by transforming their bigger stuff and then having it run into your creatures. A ninja without ninjutsu, but it's also 3 mana for a 2/2 and isn't very good. You're not wanting to spend 3 mana to ninjutsu stuff. Not on that kind of body. I mean, Trinket Mage and stuff like that, yes, but not just to be a ninja. I don't think this is very good. Ponder on a body. 5 mana Ponder on a body. I think some people may want this, but I don't think it's that great. I like Prohibit in Modern now. That's good. This is at times a good sideboard card in Legacy. I'm actually happy to see this in Modern. It will matter in sideboards, and maybe even main deck in a few decks. 4 mana instant, draw 3 cards and then discard a card. If you need a budget card draw engine, this is okay. If you actually have some cards in your collection, this is bad. On paper, this will make Rebuild a lot more attainable, and I think that's important. Rebuild should be played in more decks. Scour all possibilities. 2 mana. Scry 2, then draw a card. Flashback for 5. I would pay 2 mana if this was an instant. It's a sorcery, though. At instant speed, I would pay 2 mana to scry 2 and then draw a card. That's at sorcery speed. No. But the fact that it has flashback, though, at 5, though, this is kind of crap. This kind of falls in the same situation as Reign of Revelations. If you don't have access to a lot of cards, this is a good option. If you do, this is crap. Like, the moment you get even remotely starting to get it to a decent collection of commander cards, this is garbage. Scuttling Sliver, all slivers you control have 2. Untap this creature. This 3 mana for a 2/2 sliver. This is good enough that it might enable some sort of combo. This is pretty good for a sliver. Smoke Shroud. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, has flying. When a ninja enters the battlefield under your controlling, return Smoke Shroud from the graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. This is really good. I am going to test this in Yuriko. This is really good. I don't know what I'm going to cut for it, but the ability to just give her flying and have this not easily able to get rid of, I'm going to test this in my Yuriko deck for sure. Spell, snuff, counter target spell. Fateful Hour, if you have 5 or less life, draw a card. No! We already have 3 mana counter spells that just counter a spell and draw a card. Why? If I have 5 or less life, drawing 1 card is the last thing I want to do. I want to draw like 3 or 4 cards. If you're going to make this a Fateful Hour trigger, put better than that on there. This needs to say, like, draw 3 cards. No, this is just bad. Stream of Thought. 1 blue, sorcery, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library in their graveyard. You shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. Replicate. Whenever you cast a spell, copy it, blah, blah, blah. So, I kind of like this card. I'm not sure just how good it is. But in my Fanax deck, one of the sub-themes I have in that deck is literally, I have Mesmeric Orb and similar effects in there that mill me. And sometimes stuff goes in my graveyard that I don't want to go there. And I run an Eldrazi and a Nexus of Fate in that deck specifically to handle that. And I might test this card out as just another option to get back stuff. The fact that I can replicate it to copy it. 4 cards for 1 mana is not great, but it's worth testing in mill decks. This is not bad. I wish it was an instant. I'm going to say that a lot. You're probably going to hear me say that a lot. This could be an instant and it would be fine. However, the instant speed, it might be too strong for Modern. Not that any mill card is really too strong for Modern. String of Disappearances. 1 mana. It's an instant good. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Oh, it's Forked Lightning on a combined with Chain of Vapors. This is good. Except for it only hits creatures. There's some decks that will run this. Honestly, most decks that will run this, you should just run Chain of Vapors, probably. There's a lot more you could do with a Chain of Vapors. Not only is there more stuff you can target, but sometimes you actually want to force people to copy the spell. That's part of why Chain of Vapors is so good. You could have player A trying to combo off, and you could Chain of Vapors their permanent and stop it, but you have another opponent, player B, who has some other card you want to get rid of, and by bouncing player B's card, you force them to sack a land in order to bounce player A's card. And with a string of disappearances, 1, it requires the targets be creatures all the time, and 2, it requires the player have 2 blue open, and that's just way too narrow. But if you don't have access to Chain of Vapors, this is a good option, and there might be some situations where some decks may actually want this, or might even run both. Tribute Mage finishes a cycle. It will see play. This is a good card. It's a lot more narrow than either of the others. It hits. There's a lot of stuff that hits though. It's a lot of mana rocks. There's some decks that I run. The one that searches at 3 mana. Artifacts. And I'm in some of those decks. I might even switch into this one just simply because it gets mana rocks and it gets Jade. It gets Winter Orb. This is a really good card. In fact, I can see a lot of decks where I'm either going to add this in or switch out another mage for it. Twisted Reflection. 2 mana. Target creature gets -6, -0 until end of turn. Switch target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. I like this card. 3 mana. You kill just about anything. 2 mana. There's already a card in, I'm forgetting the name, Twisted Image, I think, which just swaps power and toughness and draws a card, and that sees some play in Modern. I see some play in Commander too. I think that there may be some people who will try some stuff with this deck, but I think 3 mana that's just eh. The only real thing it has going for it is it's for 3 mana in blue black gives -6 toughness, which might give access to some removal that is hard for those colors. This is the all-star of the set, Urza, Lord High Artificer. This card is bonkers. If you took any of those 3 abilities, this would be a good card. First of all, when it comes into the battlefield, it makes you a 0/0 colorless construct. Like a Karn struct, like Karn makes, creature with power and toughness equal to equal number of artifacts you have. Then it has tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue. It doesn't care about summoning sickness. It's Urza that has the ability, not the artifact, so you can tap this construct, so this effectively costs 3, assuming you have no other untapped artifacts. This is going to go into any deck I have that runs any Winter Orb or Static Orb, because you can use it to literally shut them off. So this is probably going to go in a couple of my decks, and it has a win con built onto it. The ability this is one of the reasons like Thrasios is so good. Is because Thrasios has a sink for all of the mana that you're creating when you go off with it, that allows you to effectively draw your deck. This has that ability built into it too. This card is bonkers. How good is it going to be in mono blue? Possible. All the tools you need for Paradox Scepter are in that color, but there's also a lot less options you have in that color, and there's not like this. You'll see this played as a good casual deck, but I'm not sure if it'll show up as a tier 1 CEDH deck with Urza as a commander. However, there are a lot of decks that will slap him into the 99 that will become better as a result. I think they might want to consider considering what it is probably going to wind up doing for Thrasios Tymna Paradox Scepter, is they might want to finally ban Paradox Engine. Not necessarily, not to shut the deck down, but just to give it less obvious lines, make it a little bit harder to just straight up win, because that deck is getting harder and harder to compete against. This is a really good card. You should try and get it day 1 while you can before it skyrockets. It's already going for the ridiculous money on pre-orders on paper. This is probably the strongest card in the set. Not necessarily the best card in the set, it's the strongest. There are cards, I think, which are like better for the format. I don't know if Urza is actually good for the format, so I wouldn't say it's the best card in the set, but it is the strongest. Watcher for Tomorrow. 2 mana for a 2/1 human wizard, Hideaway. Enters the battlefield tap. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library. It kind of draws a card. Scry 4 and draw a card later. 2 mana for a 2/1 wizard, though. This is going to go into my wizard's deck for sure, because then I can just use the token, and the token's going to die at end of turn anyways. I think Hideaway, though, is kind of clunky. Why does it have to come to play tap to do that? That's just weird. I mean, all I could think of is this was proving too strong during playtesting. Probably playtesting for limited, though, in which case I could see it. But this is the first time I think we've seen Hideaway on a creature. This is interesting. Hey, Kitty. To everybody watching on YouTube, I'm saying hello to somebody in chat. How are you doing, Kitty? Yeah, I'm iffy on Watcher of Tomorrow. Like, I think, I think this is an okay card. There are some decks that I think will run it. I'm gonna run it in my Wizard deck because I think in there it's gonna be bonkers. Specifically because I can make a token and get the card right away off the token. That's pretty good card advantage. It's also really good in flicker decks. I think in decks that can abuse this ability, this is better than enter battlefield, draw a card. That's all I can say. And for a 2 mana for a 2/1, it's effectively a bear. It's pretty good. The fact it comes into the play tapped, though, kind of hurts this card a lot. Oh wow, Kitty, that's awesome. My friend Kitty got an internship at a place that makes stuff for NASA. I'm actually super envious. Hey Kitty, if you find anything cool, I'm a huge NASA nerd. I collect NASA stuff. Anything cool that you can like make it out of the building with and mail to me, I would love you forever. Windcaller Aven. When you cycle Windcaller Aven, target creature gains flying to the end of turn. That's the only relevant text on this entire card. This is a 1 mana, instant speed, draw a card, target creature gains flying until end of turn. Ignore absolutely everything else on this card. If you need 1 mana, target creature gains flying until the end of turn, draw a card in your deck, then this is a good card. If you need any of the other stuff on this, like a bird wizard or a 4/3 flyer, this is trash. This is absolute trash. Yeah, that's true, Kitty. I kind of figured that there was an NDA or something like that, but I thought I'd ask. I love NASA, and I'm super envious of you. Winter's Rest. 2 mana. Enchanted creature. When Winter's Rest enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. As long as you control another snow permanent enchanted creature's controller doesn't untap. I think if I was playing a snow deck, I still wouldn't play this. Azure Smoke Shaper. Ninja. Enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains indestructible end of turn. No. It's bad. I'll tell you why. Yeah, 2 for 3/3. That's pretty good. But you're giving stuff indestructible. You might be able to save a blocked creature, but they're usually little small things. Why? If this was a creature with flash instead of ninjutsu, this would be a far better card. But I'm not gonna waste a slot. It's got a ninjutsu cost that I care about too. I might consider it. Compel Therapist. It's another sack outlet for 1 mana. That alone might make it see play, but it's a format that's really hard to know what's in people's hand a lot of the time because it's singleton. It's harder to punish too. It's not like you're going to catch people with 2 or 3 of a card in their hand. This is okay in the right deck. That's the best I can say. I like seeing Carrion Feeder reprinted, and I really like the art. Make this a lot more available, and a lot of decks do want this. Changeling Outcast. This is my favorite card in the set. I think this is probably one of the best cards in the set. This is an unblockable 1 mana 1/1 ninja. This is going right into Eureka. This card is bonkers. And I'm feeling this card is being slept on because I've watched other people review this set, and I don't think I've seen it really mentioned much, but this is one of the best cards in this set. Any creature deck that cares about their stuff not being blocked and has black that is tribal will care about this deck, this card. This is an amazing ninja. This says, for me, this says 1 mana, 1/1. Whenever this deals damage, your opponent loses a lot of life, and you draw a Time Warp. What more do you want on a 1/1? This card is awesome. And I've actually been testing. There's a blue mana Changeling that allows you to tap another creature to give it flying. I've been testing that in my ninja deck, specifically to test how this would do. And that's worse, and it's still good. This is a nuts card. Cordial Vampire. Whenever a Cordial Vampire or another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. Vampire players are going to love this. This is pretty decent. In a vampire deck, that is. Crypt Rats, I'm really excited to see Crypt Rats in Modern. I think that's going to be hilarious. Also glad to see more Crypt Rat availability in paper. There's going to be people who are going to want this card. Dread of Winter, all snow permanent. All non-snow creatures get -X until end of turn, blah blah blah, until... This is nuts. I'm going to have to go pick up more snowlands just so I can run Dead of Winter. This card is bonkers. This is a second Toxic Deluge, and it's nuts. This is also really good. Defile, 1 mana, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. These two here are two of the best black removal spells that I have seen printed in a long time. They are both really good. Diabolic Edict is back in Modern. Dregscape Sliver. Each sliver creature card in your graveyard has an Earth 2. And it has on Earth 2. This is okay. Some decks may want this. It's a 2 mana 2/2 with a relevant ability for slivers. Endling. So this is definitely becoming a cycle now that we have the third one. Well, fourth one if you count the greater Morphling in one of the unsets. But now we have a blue Morphling, a red Morphling, and now a black Morphling. Gains Menace, gains Death Touch, gains Undying, and the Morphling shifting ability, the Flowstone ability. Morphling's not good anymore, though. That's the problem. This is not a good card. Morphling hasn't been good since it was printed. It was a beast for a good long time, but when what's the red one called? Quickling, is that it? When Quickling was printed, it saw like very little, if any, play. And the only thing that I can say about this is you can pay to give it Undying, but why? Why doesn't it just have Undying? For 4 mana 3/3, you could have easily just said, hey, it has Undying. And I get the flavor-wise because it's Morphling, Aetherling, Brightling, Torchling, and Thornling. Yeah, that's right. There was an entire cycle. Thank you. But it's still trash. Feaster of Fools, Convoke, Flying, Devour 2. I like the flavor-wise that it can eat some of the stuff that you used to pay for it. That's actually a really cool flavor for a demon. This might see play in some token decks. This isn't bad. So it's potentially a 5/5 for free. That's pretty good. First Sphere Gargantua, Horror. Ah! If you're casting this from your hand, I think this is garbage. You don't want a 6 mana 5/4 that draws you a card. If you're unearthing it, it's not bad. But I want a card to be a little bit more than not bad. I think some people may test this in some Graveyard Matters decks. Force of Despair. If it's not your turn, exile a black card from your hand to play it for free. Destroy all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. This will go in just about any black deck in Commander, I think, or should, simply because it completely stops Crater Hoof and other similar style effects. Kiki conscripts, it stops any creature-based combo deck that's designed to win by putting a whole bunch of creatures into play on one turn and then attack with them. This completely screws. This is a free free Wrath of God against one player in a lot of situations. I think this is a really good card, and it's at the very least worth testing. And I think it's going to be pretty damn good. I'd even without the pitch effect, I think this is good. Even if it was just 3 mana for this. Gluttonous Slug, Menace Evolve. I like the flavor. Not the flavor of slugs, that is. I don't know what they taste like, but I don't think this is that great. Graveshifter. This is a strictly better grave robber. Or grave digger, that is. Because it's the exact same card, but it has Changeling. Which makes it it's one of the few times I can say a card is strictly better. There's only marginal situations where having every creature type is better. Having every creature type actually is usually a benefit. This is any card that would want a Gravedigger. This should replace their Gravedigger probably. Not that Gravedigger sees a lot of play in Commander, but I think this is pretty good. Headless Spectre. This card is trash. This is a card that's been balanced for limited. Because Hypnotic Spectre at common in limited would just be absolutely bonkers. But in any kind of constructed format, this card is garbage. This is probably the worst card in the set. A Mind Rake. Overload for 2. Each target player discards 2 cards. So, for 2 mana, each player discards 2 cards, including yourself. This card is good. This is a really freaking good card. I am going to run this in a few decks. Mob. Convoke. Destroy target creature. Any deck that can run this isn't bad. It can effectively be a free terror effect. There are better free terror effects, but I think this will be a good budget option for some decks. I might even try this in some black token decks, see how it goes. Neither Spirit's back. That's pretty good. Ninja of the New Moon. Spirit Ninja, Ninjutsu 4. This doesn't do anything. This is probably the worst ninja ever printed. Plague Engineer. It's engineered plague on a creature. I love that it's creatures your opponents control, because there's the fact that if you name carrier or otherwise it would hurt itself, which would be really funny. I like this. It adds engineered plague into modern and making it more lopsided but also more fragile at the same time. I really like this card. For Commander, engineered plague doesn't see a lot of play, but a lopsided engineered play might. Being a creature actually makes it easier to cycle it, so you can literally use it to kill all of your opponent's elves, and then sack it, and then play it again and kill all of another player's goblins. I like that. This may see some play. Future Goblin, 2 mana for a 2/2 with Persist, Zombie Goblin. I like this. I might test it in my Gonti deck. I don't think it's that great, and it probably won't stay in there. But the fact that it persists is pretty good. meaning I could sacrifice it to any of the mana producing effects in the deck and it would come back, so it effectively produces double. But I don't know if you're trying to build Gonti and you don't have a lot of options to put in your deck, I think it's a good card. Other than that, it's not that great. But I'm definitely going to try and test it. Rank Officer, 4 mana. When Rank Officer enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. 2, tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. Some zombie decks will want that. But I think there's better options. This is a good budget option for zombie tokens. If this said any graveyard, not just your graveyard, I think this would be substantially better. Because then it doubles his graveyard hate. When you're playing zombies, your graveyard is effectively, in a way, an extension of your hand. So this literally reads exile a card from your hand to activate. So it's not that great. Ransack the lab. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. This would be good if it was an instant. As a sorcery, this isn't that great at all. But it's a cool effect to have in black, because this is usually a green or a blue effect, or even red. Might get similar kind of effects. You don't see a lot of straight up black effects that have this. This is kind of a black impulse. It's sort of a black impulse. It's not as good. Putting it in the graveyard, though, I think some people will at least test these. I might even test it, but the fact it's a sorcery just kind of eh. Return from extinction. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Return 2 target creature cards, share creature type from your graveyard to your hand. This is not bad. 2 mana to return 2 creatures from your graveyard to your hand. And some decks, this is going to be actually pretty decent. Regrowth sees play at 2 mana. And in the right deck, this is potentially a better regrowth. Normally, though, 1 mana to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, and Raise Dead doesn't even see play, really. And this is 2 in a lot of cases just to get that one effect. So it makes it hard to really gauge. But I think in any tribal deck that runs black, this might be at least worth testing to see how it is. As the flavor and art indicates, this might be good in slivers, obviously. The flavor text makes me think of that joke. The first sliver called, it wants its blank back. Sadistic Obsession. Target creature, enchanted creature has tap 1 black, tap, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. This is awful. This is pure garbage. Shatter Assumptions. Target opponent reveals their hand and discards all colorless non-land cards. Target opponent reveals their hand and discards all multicolored cards. This might, depending on what you're seeing in the meta when you're playing Commander, this might be good. Because either mode can particularly hose certain decks. If you're running into a lot of artifact-heavy decks or Eldrazi decks, the first mode is this absurd. And if there are a lot of really good multicolored cards that see regular play, but most decks that run them don't run enough to make the second mode that good. But if you do run into decks in your format where both modes can actually regularly be good, this is a good card that's worth trying. But it's, like I said, it's very situational. You really have to gauge what your meta looks like. Silumgar Scavenger, Zombie Bird, Flying, Exploit. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Silumgar Scavenger. Gains haste on the turn. if it exploited that creature. 5 mana for a 3/4 flying haste. No. The fact that any other creature dies buffs it means that some decks may want to try it out, but no. That's not where you want to be at 5 mana, I think. Sling Gang Lieutenant is bonkers, and any Goblin deck that can run this should run this. If you're running Goblins and you have access to black mana, i.e. Gonti, this card should be in your deck. It makes every Goblin deck instantly better, and it's a win con. Like, this is straight up better than Siege Gang, because you don't have to pay mana to sack stuff. You just wait till you have a critical mass of goblins on the board, and you just start sacking them to do damage. And gaining life, which is also super relevant. Smiting Helix, 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Flashback is Lightning Helix at sorcery speed. No. Straight up no. If this was an instant, cool. I love the flavor on this card. But this is a sorcery. Sorcery 3 damage for 4. No. Even with such a cool flashback, no. Mardu decks don't want this. Throat Seeker. 3 mana for a 3/2 ninja. Unblocked attacking ninjas you control have lifelink. Without any ninjutsu effect, it's another non-ninjutsu ninja. It has no evasion itself. I like this card flavor-wise. But unless you're specifically playing super on the ninja theme, like Ninja Tribal, you don't really want this. If you're trying to build like an actual like good ninja deck, you don't want this. If you're building a fun and flavorful ninja deck, then you want this. No, it's okay. Umezawa's Charm. It's a one case activation of Umezawa's Jete on a card. Any modal card is usually good. 2 mana instant to give a buff in a type of buff black doesn't usually get. -1/-1 end of turn, or gain 2 life. You're never going to pay 2 just to gain 2 life. Maybe if you're in a situation where you're paying 2 mana to gain 2 life with this, you're in a pretty dire situation most of the time, unless you're specifically looking to trigger some sort of life gain trigger effect that's in play. But these first 2 abilities are pretty good. I could see some decks at least trying this out. It's like a situational buff or removal card, but I don't know if it's worth 2 mana. I almost feel like this could be a 1 mana card and be perfectly good, but not as a common. As an uncommon or a rare, this should have been a 1 mana card. I'm going to stop streaming now because my streaming software just booted me.